There is a conflict unfolding right now that almost no one is talking about, and it is not happening in the Middle East. Today, we are going to explore a scenario that could become the next major geopolitical turning point. A possible confrontation between the United States and Venezuela, and it may be coming sooner than most people think. Check this out. There's news of a large US-led military movement heading toward the Caribbean, including what the Navy calls the largest warship ever built, accompanied by fighter jets moving closer to Latin America. 4 months. 4 months. The US has been quietly taking steps that look a lot like the early stages of a regime change strategy for Venezuela. And what caught my attention is how familiar this story sounds. As I get older, I notice that patterns repeat themselves. But this time, it's easier to see how the narrative is crafted. It's fascinating to study how governments shape public opinion about conflict. So let's ask the real questions. Why is Venezuela suddenly so important? Why now? And what are we not being told? Officially, the US says it's about democracy, human rights, drug trafficking, and an oppressive regime. But behind those talking points lies a deeper reality, one that connects energy, global power, and the future of money. Because Venezuela sits on the largest proven oil reserves on the planet, even more than Saudi Arabia, and is also forming closer ties with China, Russia, and Iran, 3 countries that directly challenge US interests, and, more importantly, the dominance of the US dollar. But starting a war is extremely unpopular. So how do you convince the public that intervention is necessary? You build a narrative, one that appeals to emotion. If people aren't convinced by the war on drugs, maybe the fight against socialism will resonate instead. And if that doesn't work, you appeal to something stronger. Patriotism and morality. We're defending freedom. We're protecting human rights. We're standing up for democracy. And maybe that sounds noble, but history shows a repeating pattern. Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, Syria, all began with similar moral justifications. Yet many of those places were left unstable for years afterward. Yes, Venezuela is suffering deeply. The economy collapsed. Millions have fled. Corruption is real, but if human rights were truly the central issue, why don't we see the same outrage toward US allies that also violate human rights, like Saudi Arabia or Egypt? The outrage seems very selective. So what's really happening? It's not just about oil. It's about who gets to control it, how it's traded, and what currency will dominate the future. Because every barrel of oil sold outside the dollar system weakens the global influence of the United States. And that is what Washington wants to prevent. Over the past years, the US placed over 150 sanctions on Venezuela, cutting it off from trading partners in the international financial system. This pushed Venezuela into the arms of China, which stepped in and lent over $60 billion in exchange for access to oil and long-term energy deals. Every drop that goes to China strengthens their position and reduces America's leverage. That's why this moment matters. The world may be shifting away from the petrodollar system, where oil is priced in dollars, the system that has helped maintain US power for decades. With BRICS expanding, China making oil deals in yuan backed by gold, Russia building its own payment networks, and Venezuela shipping oil outside the dollar, the old system may be cracking. This doesn't mean troops will be sent in tomorrow. Modern conflict doesn't require invasion, just financial isolation. Cut off a country from trade, banking, and insurance, and their economy collapses from within. That is economic warfare. But here's the twist. The more pressure certain countries feel from the US, the closer they move toward its rivals. And that is exactly how new alliances are born. So the real story might not be about Venezuela alone, but about a new global system slowly emerging, built by countries that are tired of playing by Washington's rules. And Venezuela, whether it knows it or not, has become a piece on that larger chessboard. I'm not here to say who's right or wrong. I don't pretend to know how it feels to run a nation or a superpower, but I do believe this. We're going to see more conflicts like this. Some will be declared as wars. Some will be silent. But all of them will be shaped by a battle for energy, currency, and influence. So, the goal of this video is simple. To look beyond the headlines and to understand the world as it really works. If we can do that, we can make smarter decisions and maybe see the future a little more clearly. Thanks for watching. If this made you think, hit the like button, subscribe for more breakdowns, and I'll see you soon.